The objective: to deliver the NBA to you like no other. News, play breakdowns, power rankings, storylines you never hear talked about anywhere else. It's all straight shots here, fired by straight shooters. S and Gunn. This is the Objective Basketball Podcast.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Objective Basketball Podcast. S here, Lauren, as always. Okay, so it's a crazy day. It's a wild day. It is craziness all over. The NBA playoffs are well underway. We have seen all game ones. We've seen a couple of game twos. And, you know, I think we can have some observations here and there, right, from the craziness that is happening. And we'll get to those in a second. Mm-hmm. But what everybody is talking about, ladies and gentlemen, and it's just this is just the way the NBA works in terms of drama and storylines. Hey, it's why we have an NBA podcast in the first place. It's because the SDPN was like, we need to get in on the NBA storylines because they're crazy. It really is like a reality TV show. Much like a reality TV show, Draymond Green is now the latest contestant. He is suspended for one game after, I mean, look, everybody has seen it, but the stomping on Domantas Sabonis' chest, yes, to the Warriors fans who might be listening, yes, Domantas Sabonis did grab his leg for the love of God, but he didn't need to get his chest imprinted and used as a trampoline, okay? Mm-hmm. Maybe, Lauren, we can discuss and debate this as well. But do you think the one-game suspension, which based on NBA executive VP Joe Dumars, is because of excessive and over-the-top actions and him being a repeat offender, doing this multiple times? Do you think this suspension is warranted, given the fact that Sabonis, had that, he pulled his leg.
Grab.
Sure, he grabbed his leg. Sabonis also got a technical foul. Draymond Green got ejected from the game. The Warriors are down 2-0 heading into Golden State. Do you think a suspension was necessary in this moment?
And I may get some blowback for this, but personally, I think the suspension maybe was a little much because it's not like it was all one-sided. And I also want to preface this by I saw on Twitter, I don't remember what account it was probably one of those clickbait accounts, but it was like, is Domantas Sabonis a dirty player? And I have never in my life thought that he was a dirty player. I saw JJ Redick's comments that he thought the Sacramento Kings have been making dirty plays and the officials are giving them, some favoritism in certain ways. And I think it's all as we see with these kinds of storylines, it always gets blown up way, not, I don't want to say way out of proportion, because it was a dirty play by Draymond. That stomp was pretty extreme.
Well, also these type of things have a snowball effect to them, especially in the playoffs, because of the implications, because of how important each game is. It makes it so that, it amps up the intensity. So everything matters.
It does for sure. And I want the reason, and this is why I might get blowback, because I recognize that this is probably a crappy reason. But the reason I'm anti-suspension is because this could change the series. This could change. I saw your tweet and I completely agreed with it. I expect the Warriors to punch back on their home floor. I think the series is far from over. But because it is such a close series, it is such a competitive series, and there's so much on the line. We've been talking for months about how big this season is for the Warriors, given the age, the timeline, the injuries, everything. So I would hate to see this suspension. I would hate to see this next game look a lot different than the first two games that we've seen, and this potentially be kind of a pivotal defining moment in the series looking back. That is why I'm anti-suspension. At the same time, when you've got Domantas Sabonis, the last I saw, it could have been updated by then. Correct me if it has, but I saw that he was questionable for Game 3 because of a sternum contusion, and so
which is a funny contusion, by the way. That's a funny.
That could be another thing that also ends up being a quote unquote, I don't want to say defining moment, but that could be a potential big thing for the Kings going forward. So it's nothing to kind of brush over, but in the playoffs, every single game carries so much weight that sometimes a suspension, especially when there's some coming from both sides, I think can be a little extreme.
I agree. And you mentioned the JJ Redick stuff. He also mentioned that the Kings are getting a favorable whistle in the sense that they're not looking for contact when it comes to the Kings and whatnot. I looked at it, man. There is no free throw discrepancy in the first two games at all. It's like 25-23, 22-21. Like there's not an outlandish discrepancy in the free throws. And honestly, that's kind of surprising because if you look back at the regular season, the Warriors are dead last in free throw rate. They do not generate a lot of free throws. They also are 22nd in opponent free throw rate. So they foul a lot and they get people to the line a lot. The Kings are 9th in free throw rate. They get to the free throw line a considerable amount, and they also don't foul a lot, and they're 9th in opponent free throw rate. So I just think the whole they are rigging this for the Sacramento Kings thing is nonsense. I can't believe we've got to this point where the Sacramento Kings are this is like,
it's being rigged in their favor. Yeah.
Right.
I never in a million years would have thought that we would be saying that.
The mighty media, Sacramento Kings being taken. Yeah.
It's insane, which is why I'm so glad that you brought up those stats because year after year, there's always somebody saying, oh, this big market team, the Warriors, the Lakers, the Heat, whoever, they get these favorable calls because they're these big market teams. And the NBA knows that they'll generate the most revenue if these two teams are in the finals or these two teams are having success filling the headlines, whatever. And so it is crazy to me to think that narrative is being pushed when we're talking about the Sacramento Kings. I think that is just absurd.
Well, look, the big, mighty, big market Sacramento Kings, right? That's the way the cookie crumbles sometimes, ladies and gentlemen. No, I think that is a ridiculous notion. And I've watched both of these games, like glued in. I have been glued in. These two games were the best playoff games of the playoffs so far. The Kings had an incredible game one. And then in game two, they capitalized on despite some bad shooting from the Kings. They capitalized on one, and now they lead 2-0. I think the Kings have proven that they are the better team throughout the season. They have also been the better team throughout the series, and not a whole lot of that has to do with officiating. A lot of that does not have to do with like, oh, this guy is getting suspended, this guy's getting suspended. I don't think a lot of that has to do with this so far. Moving forward, though, when it comes to Draymond, when it comes to Sabonis, now you start to question the validity of some of the suspension stuff. And I'm not going to lie to you, as much as I think Draymond, I love Draymond, by the way, well documented. I understand this isn't like the best time to be saying that I love Draymond because he doesn't necessarily have a lot of fans, but I love Draymond. I think I'm a big fan of those type of guys. Fuck it. Sue me. Okay. I love Draymond. I love Chris Paul. I love Kyle Lowry. I love the guys who are going to try and bend the rules, but not break them. And Draymond, this time, stepping on Sabonis's chest, broke a rule. And then he went on to do that in front of Adam Silver. He was taunting the Kings fans. There's that clip of him saying, what up, what up, what up, what up. I just think, with all that being said, with the history that Draymond has of doing stuff like this before, it does make sense to suspend him. Yeah. But that being said, I'm surprised they did.
I'm very surprised. I am with you.
I think I'm more so surprised than I am. There's a part of me that isn't surprised because of who Draymond is and what he's done in the past. But then given the implications of this series, given the implications of, hey, this might be Draymond's last series as a Golden State Warrior, the fact that this might be their final quote-unquote run with this core, that makes me put into question. It feels like the NBA didn't put those things into context. And also, in my mind, if I'm trying to rationalize it, it's like, okay, cool. Sabonis, like, let's say it like this. Let's say, we're somewhere and someone pushes you, okay? And then you go ahead and grab a shovel and smack them across the head with it. Okay. that's the degree difference of, in my opinion, Sabonis holding a leg versus someone stomping on you. So I just, to me, I think the punishment doesn't serve the crime or fit the crime, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But when it comes to the future of this series, the implication, huge implication.
Right.
Now, to be honest with you, I still think the Warriors can win in Game 3.
I for sure.
Even
Absolutely.
without Draymond. Like, I really do think that it's possible that they end up winning Game 3. And then now Draymond is back for Game 4. Momentum is back. They're feeling themselves. They tie the series in 4. They go to Sacramento, maybe pull it off in 5. And then now it's like, hey, they're back. You know? I do not think this series is over one bit. And I do not think that, yes, Draymond not being there is going to be huge for one game. But I think the Warriors are capable enough to win in Oracle. Well, not Oracle anymore, in Chase Center.
Chase Center, yeah.
Without Draymond, one game against the Kings. I think they can do it.
I think so too.
Yeah, that's the Draymond debacle. We've talked about it. We've discussed it. It just seems like stories like this tend to take over the discussion for the NBA without really realizing, like, man, there's been such good basketball. Ladies and gentlemen, it has been incredible. And you need to get in on the action. Make your bet with Sports Interaction. Every hit, every shot, every goal, every basket, and every goal that the Toronto Maple Leafs concede. Yeah, sorry, just had to throw that in there. From all your favorite teams and players, maybe not the Toronto Maple Leafs, with competitive odds, the best in live in play, and more ways than ever to get into the game. Like Minute Madness, our exclusive game with so many opportunities to win by the minute. Download the app in Ontario, use the QR code on your screen, or head to sportsinteraction.com/SDPN to get started. 19 plus, please play responsibly. Yes, I was taking some jabs at Leafs fans because it's just, at this point, it's comical. Like, look, even when the Raptors were losing down 19 and we had experienced a awful season, I just started laughing to myself. It was the third quarter, and I'm like, this team is going to do it. They're going to do it. And it feels like the Toronto Maple Leafs are. Yeah. Similar. Anyways, the different story. The playoffs, however, the NBA playoffs have been incredible. They've been awesome. Really, really great. We talked about the Draymond suspension stuff. We'll see what happens with Kings and Warriors in Game 3. The other side of this non-basketball that's happening is the injuries. And look, that happens every playoffs, every year. I had a tweet a while back where it's like, I'm going to go ahead and give every single NBA champion in the last 50 years an asterisk. Okay. And I went through, and every year you could say, oh, there was an injury here. Oh, there was an injury here. Oh, this guy got suspended. Oh, this guy, missed a couple games against this team, so then they couldn't make it. And you could go ahead and asterisk every single NBA playoffs. And the point behind that is that basketball, the NBA playoffs, is a war of attrition. You have to stay healthy. The healthiest team ends up probably winning. And if it's not the healthiest team, it's the team that can deal with their injuries with the amount of depth that they have the best. The injuries that I'm talking about right now, Giannis Antetokounmpo, he suffered a back injury against the Miami Heat in Game 1. And then John Morant, he suffered a really nasty hand injury against the Lakers in Game 1. Neither of those are great. Those are two superstar players, two guys who are top 10, top 5, top 15 type players. And it's brutal because those teams rely on those guys so much. I mean, I picked the Bucks to win the NBA championship.
Yeah.
So this really puts a wrench in that if Giannis isn't fully healthy. And the thing is, we'll talk about Giannis first. Backs are not something that, like, oh, it's okay now.
Yeah.
He doesn't,
we're all good.
Yeah. He doesn't feel it on
it. Yeah.
No. It's okay. Backs are something that, like, you have to constantly work at. It's maybe at some point will require surgery. I don't know how bad it is. It's just a back contusion. It's a lower back contusion. So maybe it's just, he bumped it. He's not feeling great right now. And in a week, this is not even a conversation. But at the same time, backs are something, we've seen it with Ben Simmons, where like you could tweak it again. You could get hurt again, and it could develop and become chronic. And that is awful news for Giannis. Again, obviously, I hope he's okay. When it comes to the Bucks and Heat series, which the Heat won game one in a really, really great fashion. They played great, but they'll also be missing Tyler Hero, who broke his hand in game one on like diving for a loose ball. So I guess my question to you is, given the Giannis injury, given the Giannis situation, I believe he's questionable for tonight in game two. By the time you're listening to us, we will have known if he's going to play or not and how well he looked. Do you think the Heat have a chance here to pull off an upset, even with the Giannis stuff, even with the Tyler Hero stuff?
Yeah, personally, I don't. I hate to write off a team. I don't, and I'm not trying to write off the Miami Heat, but it's very, very difficult for me to envision them overcoming all of this, especially when you take into consideration the Tyler Hero injury, because that obviously very significant. A broken hand. There's not a whole lot you can do about that to get around that one. I saw in the last 5 minutes that Giannis was upgraded to questionable. So I think that that's a really good sign for the Milwaukee Bucks. But like you mentioned, back injuries, they're not ankle injuries. They're not, I mean, they're very, very, they can be very serious and turn very serious very quickly. So I don't think everything is all good just because he's upgraded and potentially plays tonight. That could, I mean, we could be having this conversation in a week saying, "Oh man, that was a mistake. Look, now he's almost worsened it." Or they're just tricky injuries. So for this specific series, I do think that they will be okay. But we could be seeing the early, and I hate to even put this out there, but we could be seeing the early stages of, okay, this is the individual asterisk for the 2022-2023 NBA season. Yeah,
probably. I mean, look, if he's not 100%, this will definitely be the thing. And look, if the Celtics go on, especially if the Celtics go on to win the championship, it's like, but you guys
Milwaukee
didn't play Giannis. Yeah, Giannis wasn't healthy. If Giannis was healthy, man. And, look, the Bucks did the same with Middleton last year. They're like, look, if Middleton was healthy, man, that 7-game series would have gone very differently. And I tend to agree with them. But I think when it comes to the Bucks and specifically against the Heat, I think they just have too much firepower. And the Heat losing Tyler Hero is big because they don't have anyone who can replicate that type of offensive production. They don't really have anybody that can replicate that playmaking, the secondary playmaking that Tyler Hero can produce for them. If Lowry was healthy, if Lowry was 33 years old, I would have said, okay, Lowry will pick up the slack here.
Yeah.
But I just don't think the Heat have the depth necessary to sustain, the offense without Tyler Hero. Now, that being said, if Jimmy Butler just goes absolutely insane, I could see this being a longer series than we both expected in the sense that, okay, maybe it goes 6 or 7 now with Jimmy playing out of his mind and Bam playing out of his mind. And maybe they get some good contributions from like Max Strus. Maybe Lowry looks healthy. Like if all things go well, I can see the Heat pushing this to 6 or 7.
Yeah.
But I don't think so. I don't think that's going to happen. And I would still bet on the Bucks to win this series handedly. The question is now, how would the Bucks look if Giannis is not 100% against the Cavs or against the Knicks or, maybe even later on down the road against the Celtics? And that's where you get into that asterisk point.
Right.
Let's talk about the other injury, Ja Morant. He really suffered a brutal hand injury. So apparently there is no breaks, there's no tears, nothing like that. But they're saying that it is just a pain tolerance injury in the sense that he has to either play through it or not play through it. And I wouldn't blame him if he can't play. God, I wouldn't blame him at all. Like, I mean, look, it is what it is. If you can't play with your hand, it's all good. You definitely need your right hand to be able to play basketball. I just wonder. The Grizzlies are good without Ja, by the way. We've shown that multiple times. They did it last season. I think their record last year without Ja, who missed a certain chunk, was like 23-9 or something along those lines.
It was good. It was high win percentage,
Yeah. And then this season they've done the same. Even when Ja went down with that whole controversy and had to step away, the Grizzlies, for the most part, kept trekking on. They just produced, good wins. Now, to be honest with you, in a playoff setting, that becomes a little bit more difficult because you just lose one more chef in the kitchen, right? You just don't have as many hands. And as much as I like Tyus Jones, as much as I enjoy what he does on a basketball court, some of the transition stuff, the fast tempo that Ja lets them play with is definitely going to be missing now. And I think that's one of their biggest advantages against a older, more grizzled Lakers team.
Right.
So that's where I'm curious to see what'll happen. And I imagine he tries to play. We'll see what happens here. And if he ends up not being able to play for the rest of the series, we'll see. I think regardless, the Grizzlies put up a good fight, though. What do you think?
Yeah, I do think the Grizzlies will put up a good fight moving forward, no matter when Ja comes back or if he comes back, I assume he will. But I'm with you. I think it's a bit, I don't want to say too much to ask of Tyus Jones because he's been phenomenal for them over the course of the season and already with what we're seeing. But when you talk about point of attack and the separation that Ja can get the shooters when he attacks the rim and creates that space for these 3-point shooters to have the space to convert, just make it an easier shot, an easier look, a more effective possession. It's really difficult when you now, I mean, you're not going to obviously ask Tyus Jones to do the exact same thing that Ja Morant does. That's not how that works, but you now have to change how things are working. And like you said, when you're taking a big piece of the puzzle in the transition play, not that it's disappearing completely, but when you're taking Ja Morant out of that, it does significantly change how things are going to go. And so I would definitely have concern if I'm Memphis, and with a hand injury, a pain tolerance injury, it's really hard to predict. Is he going to be available? How close? How much time do we have to prepare or change things leading up to the game? So I think that's going to be a big hurdle for Memphis to overcome, and I think the Lakers are loving every bit of it.
Yeah, and I mean, moving forward, if you're the Lakers, this game 2 in Memphis is a huge opportunity.
Huge.
I mean, folks, by the time you're listening to this, it will be done. So we will see what the results are, and you will see how Ja Morant looks. But let's say the Lakers win this game 2-0. You now head to Staples Center / Crypto Arena, and you go ahead. You're up 2-0 against the Grizzlies. You can make this 3-0 because the Lakers crowd is going to be insane, and there's a possibility Ja isn't healthy in the situation. Now, let's say the Grizzlies end up tying the series 1-1. You're still in a pretty good position because you're wondering if Ja is even going to play. I think there is a huge incentive for the Lakers to try to finish the series as early as possible because you need to give LeBron and AD rest. Let's say the Lakers end up finishing this in 5. Okay? 5. That would be pretty wild to me. And it would be pretty shocking, but let's say they finish it in 5. That would probably give them over a week of rest for the second round playoffs, which is probably going to be a Kings team that can run them out the gym, or a Warriors team that can probably do some of the same. So I think they need to be well rested for that series if they want to have even a glimpse, a glimmer of a chance to get into the Western Conference Finals. Which is crazy to say about the Los Angeles Lakers. It's so wild to even consider. And yes, I'm fidgeting with a charger here, but I'm a fidgeter, folks. I'm a fidgeter.
I am too. I get it. Believe me, I get it.
So it's just, I'm so intrigued by how the playoffs have shook out so far, because it seemed like it was going to be, okay, we know who the East people are. We got the Bucks, we got the Celtics. Maybe the Cavs or Knicks make some noise, but so far we know what's happening. But now the Giannis injury, you throw that into it. Okay, the Cavs don't look as good as we might have thought. And oh, wait, no, now the Knicks might not look as good, and they might be dealing with some injuries with Julius Randle. And there's just so much uncertainty that happens. And some of that uncertainty actually is happening in the Western Conference as well. I wanted to bring this up to you. The Phoenix Suns and the LA Clippers. Can we
I had a feeling it was coming.
Can we just do a little victory lap? Can we just do just a little one of these? Just one of these. I don't. It's too early. It's way too early. Now I'm like caught up in a bunch of wires. It's way too early to do a victory lap, but that's just a tiny victory lap, just a mini tiny victory lap to say the Suns' depth issue is an issue. We talked about it. The Suns starters scored 110 of their 123 points last night.
That's terrible.
The Suns bench played, which by the way, there were 5 bench players who played. Damian Lee played 3 minutes. Okay. Well, if you want to count Ish Wainwright's 41 seconds at the end, sure. Ish Wainwright played 41 seconds. TJ Warren played 2 minutes. Josh Okogie played 15 minutes. Landry Shamet played 14 minutes. and Bismack Biyombo played 14. Now, the starters. Kevin Durant, 44 minutes. Devin Booker, 44 minutes. Chris Paul, the aging, the old, the veteran, Chris Paul, 38 minutes, 37 minutes and 39 seconds, but we're rounding up here. And then Torrey Craig and DeAndre Ayton each had 31. That is not sustainable.
That's unbelievable.
To me.
No, not sustainable at all. And it's baffling to me because to start a series that way, I mean, you get it as you mark. I mean, okay, let me rewind. If you're Phoenix, in your mind, you have the talent to go the distance. So in your mind, because you think that that's where you're headed, it's shocking to me that you find yourself in a position where you've got your starters playing 40. How much did you say Chris Paul played? He didn't quite hit 40, did he?
38.
37. Okay,
yeah,
thank
yeah.
you. So most of them almost playing, all of them playing 40 minutes, starting right out the gate. That is a lot. It is not sustainable at all. I would double down on that a million times over. And I'm worried. And to be in a position where it's 1-1 is it 1-1 or is it 1-0?
It's 1-1. Yeah.
1-1. Okay. Thank you. So I don't know. Not feeling too good about that, but I loved that Russ moment. Honestly, game 1 with Russ, those were some incredible moments. And those, when you're playing against a team like that has that's going to have the versatility, the effort, the plays that Russ made, those are game changers. And I don't know. I have worries for Phoenix.
Russ also played well in game 2. I mean, he had 28 points, 5 and 5. He was playing some great defense in the first half. The shot selection is always going to be a thing with Russ, but he
makes up for it. We're seeing him make up for it, I think, right now.
Absolutely.
And I've been very pleased to see that from him.
Absolutely. I mean, look, I'll admit this very easily. Like, both me and you were kind of wrong about the whole Russ and Clippers thing.
Yeah.
We thought like it was over. He should go to a team that isn't really trying to compete. Maybe he'll get, but no, he's doing really, really well with the Clippers. Mm-hmm. And I think to your point, we'll get to the Kawhi stuff in a second, but when it comes to having a long series, right? Forget the playoffs, right? Because let's say you win this series, you win in 6, and now you're facing a Denver team, in the Mile High, right? You're playing in that altitude. Heavy minutes, right? You don't know who you're going to rely on bench-wise. I think Monty Williams, with the way that he's like playing these bench guys, he really doesn't know where to find consistent spots for these guys. I think Landry Shamet makes sense as your 6th guy. I think Biyombo makes sense. I think throwing in a Josh Okogie makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Like, these are guys, okay, sure. They're so top-heavy that maybe these supporting cast members can contribute.
Right.
But you got to see the minutes go down at some point, and they were bleeding, like legitimately bleeding when their bench was on for the most part. And I just don't know how that's sustainable moving forward. Now, if you look for the Clippers are like the complete opposite of that. They have so much depth. They don't know what to do with it. Sometimes there's a question of like, okay, why isn't Terrence Mann playing in this situation more versus Eric Gordon or Nick Batum? Why are we, they have to ask themselves these questions. And I think when it comes to the Clippers, I believe there's a better chance that they win this series now than I ever did. I really do think that, like, I have changed my perspective on 2 series, maybe 3 if we're talking about the Kings and Warriors. But 2 series, I was pretty confident that the Cavs would win that in 6 or 7. And I was pretty confident that the Suns would win in 5 or 6.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm not so sure anymore.
Yeah.
And the reason is because Kawhi looks incredible. He looks as good as he ever has. I mean, playoff Kawhi is absolutely activated. He was incredible in game 1. He was also incredible in game 2. Russ has played well for them so far. They have the depth necessary to supplement any kind of minute stuff that they need to throw out there. They can throw out a Norm Powell. They can throw out a Terrence Mann. Mason Plumlee and Bones Hallen can give them good minutes. I just think there's a considerable amount of depth to that Clippers team, which is going to help them so much later down the road in this series.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're looking at game 6, if you're looking at game 7, maybe Paul George is back by then because he looks, he looks good.
Like he's headed that direction.
So let's say you're in game 6, game 7, KD and Book and Chris Paul have all logged 40 plus minutes in almost every game of the series. I just don't know if they got the legs for that, man. Like, and this is not a core that like is the most healthy of the bunch. Chris Paul is known to break down in the playoffs and have these injuries. Kevin Durant has had injuries this season, the year prior. Devin Booker had his own injury this year. And I think Book has been a very, very healthy player throughout his career, but there's still questions of exhaustion.
Yeah.
So we both were, I think. Actually, no, I don't know. Did you pick the Suns to come out of the West?
I did. I picked that. I did. I picked them to come out of the West.
Right. Okay. I remember saying like I can't get there yet. And
Yeah.
The reason was because of the depth.
Yep.
And I just have to say that these past couple games hasn't made me any less confident in that claim. I think I had the Nuggets winning against the Suns in the second round, and I'm growing very, very confident in that. So
yeah. No, I'm with you there. I think the Nuggets in that scenario should feel pretty good. And I, like you said, I think we both kind of had our concerns with the depth, but I don't think anyone would have thought that the questions would then become this significant this early on. I mean, we've only seen 2 games of the first series, and we're already like, oh shoot, how's that going to work out? And so, I don't know how things are going to go with Phoenix, but I gotta say, and Mavs fans, you can plug your ears for this one, but I'm secretly hoping that the Clippers pull that one out, because that would be quite the story.
Yeah, it would be interesting. And I mean, look, if the Clippers do end up winning the series, and now Paul George is back against the Nuggets.
The Nuggets, yeah.
And Kawhi looks great. Now it's like, okay, maybe the Clippers do end up getting over the hump this year, right?
Oh, yeah.
But a lot of that hinges on these next 2 games in in Los Angeles. And yeah, we'll see what happens. I'm so fascinated with that. Any other first round observations? Any other series you want to talk about? Anything else you want to talk about? Because there's obviously, we've touched on the main topics, but there's a lot there that we can chew on depending on what you want to go for.
Yeah, maybe kind of going in a little bit more on Cleveland and New York. I know we've kind of mentioned them a little bit, but before I was with you that I felt Cleveland was going to take care of business there in 6 to 7 games. Now I truly have no idea how this series is going to go, because the first game I thought was kind of a snapshot of how this whole series was going to go. The second game left me with about 1 million questions that I don't know that I have the answers to. And so I'm very curious how this series is going to go and what it will mean. I mean, the offseason is my like bread and butter. That's when I love the player acquisitions, everything. So for both of these teams, I'm not saying they're going to shake things up, but I do wonder how the pressures, when we always talk about the pressures, I do wonder what this series means for both the winner and the loser, especially because we do expect it to be so close even after that second game. Right. I don't know. This series, I don't quite know how to categorize it yet. What are your thoughts?
I agree with you. I still think it goes 6 or 7. But I'm less optimistic about my Cavs pick in 6 or 7.
Okay.
I still think like if you had to beg me to choose which team, I would probably still lean Cavs in 6 or 7. But I'm less confident in that now than I was before. I think my biggest question for the Knicks was, hey, how are Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle going to score against that Cavaliers defense? They're very isolation heavy players. How is it going to look? And the answer I've so far gotten is that it looks tremendous. They have done a great job of scoring. I think Julius Randle really likes the Evan Mobley matchup. I know he didn't shoot that well against him, but there's a size and there's a strength there to what Julius Randle can do. Julius Randle's a really, really strong dude, incredibly strong dude. And Evan Mobley just hasn't filled out yet. Despite being a great defender, he just hasn't filled out yet. So there's certain advantages to being able to bully a guy in the middle. It gets him tired. It doesn't make him as active offensively. His shot is off. His touch is a little bit off. And we've seen that so far in the series with Mobley. I'm curious to see. I mean, look, we're going to Madison Square Garden now. It's 1-1. They're going to MSG, and the crowd there is going to be insane. I'm sure that the Knicks are going to win at least one of those games.
Oh, yeah.
The question now becomes, is that Cavs supporting cast that shrunk in Game 1? Garland didn't look that good in Game 1. He had an incredible game in Game 2, absolutely led the team, and I think that was a big reason why the Cavs were able to win. It was because they started off with getting Garland hot and then went to their other things. But yeah, the Mobley didn't do that well. the Okoros and the Seti Osmonds of the world, the supporting cast didn't do well. LeVert didn't do well. And in game 2, like you mentioned, it was the complete opposite. LeVert did well. They played their small ball lineup a little bit more. They only played with one big man, whether it was Jared Allen or Evan Mobley. They started playing LeVert and Osmond together to get a little bit more shooting touch and have a little bit more spacing around Mitchell and Garland. And it worked. Now it's on the Kings to counter that. And I'm curious to see if they go small, if the Knicks end up going a little bit smaller, if they go, Randall at the 5 or Robinson at the 5, and then they have a bunch of guards if they want to go like RJ or Quentin Grimes and whatnot. And the other thing is, like, the Knicks supporting cast hasn't been that stellar either. RJ Barrett has been
I'm watching
a ghost.
Obi, and I'm like,
right. Yeah. Obi Toppin hasn't been that great. Quentin Grimes hasn't been that stellar. Emmanuel Quickly hasn't been that great. So you're expecting that at some point those guys, especially at home in MSG, are going to turn up.
For sure.
I think the pressure is unbelievably on the Cavs to get one, because if they go down 3-1, this could be Knicks in 6 or 5 very, very quickly.
Yeah.
And the one note I'll say about Cavs Knicks, which also applies to the rest of the NBA playoffs, offensive rebounding has become so unbelievably important. I wrote it on SDPN. You can go and check it out, the newsletter if you want. Not newsletter, but the article on why offensive rebounding has become so important. And it's increasingly important in this series because of how much both teams will be able to generate more offense. And if you're getting more possessions, if you're winning the possession battle, you're getting extra, second chance points. It's just going to make things and your life much easier. That applies to a lot of these series. It applied in the Kings-Warriors series. It still does. It applies in that Clippers-Sun series we talked about earlier, and it still does. How these teams win the possession battle is going to matter so much moving forward in the playoffs. And I think that'll be the determining thing in this Cavs-Knicks series also.
Yeah. Yeah, especially with the Knicks being, when we're talking about offensive rebounding, you can't not talk about the New York Knicks. So yeah, I think that will definitely be one, if not the most significant battles in this series, or determining kind of factors in this series. So we'll see how it shakes out, but we are very, very lucky to have these first round matchups that we do, because they are not disappointing at all. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see, man. It's going to be crazy. Look, folks, we'll be here, tapped in, locked in, talking about playoff basketball over the next month or so. I mean, we'll probably do some NBA draft stuff later down the road, but right now we are in the heat of playoff basketball. And we appreciate you guys listening, tapping into the Objective Basketball Podcast. From Lauren, from myself, we will see you guys later. Take care.
Follow hosts at Just S Baraheni on all socials and at the Lauren Gunn on Twitter. The Objective Basketball Podcast, delivering the NBA to you like no other.